Hi, I enjoy Call of Duty. I have for years. In my time at GameSpot, I've made dozens of Call of Duty related videos, and it's easily the series I've sunk the most hours into. So, I had the bright idea of revisiting every Call of Duty in 2021. All of them. All of them. The Call of Duty series has been around for nearly 20 years, and it has changed. But if you're like me, you haven't experienced all of these changes because you haven't played every single Call of Duty. Well, that's what I'm here to do. It's me, you, and every Call of Duty played in 2021. If you like where this is going, drop a like and buckle up because here we go.
Before the bombastic rise to fame, before all the shit-talking online matches, and before the millions and billions of dollars, there was Call of Duty 1, released on October 9th, 2003. This was an exclusive PC title tailing the success of the World War II resurgence from the late 90s and early 2000s. A needle in this haystack was Infinity Ward's very first game. At this point, they were a brand new studio with fewer than 24 employees, but little did they know that the work they put forth in the coming years would lead to something bigger than anyone could have imagined. By today's standards, Call of Duty 1 seems like a humble timestamp of the early 2000s. Its presentation isn't over the top, characters don't speak in one-liners, and the gameplay is familiar, even to something like Call of Duty 4, which wouldn't come around for years. If you grew up playing FPS titles on PC, you'll understand what I mean. Every game around this time sort of looked like this, which made Call of Duty 1 very approachable to someone like me who had never played it. Playing this for the first time in 2021, right away a strange case of nostalgia kicked in for me. The familiar voice acting of Steve Bloom, mixed with the warm tones of the outdoor training yard, really transported me back to a simpler time. Hey, is that Captain Price? It is! For the most part, the controls are familiar too, but the biggest and immediate difference is that there is no ability to sprint, and that sort of sets the tone for this entire experience. It's literally a slower paced game, something I strangely didn't anticipate. As far as the narrative, this was the start of a lot of storytelling elements that would carry over into other Call of Duty games. For example, the story is told through 3 different campaigns: American, British, and Soviet. Within these stories, there are big set pieces that are utilized more than once, or even through the duration of the entire level. You get a compass with your directives, and the friendly AI won't push the enemies until you do. The story is told through mission briefings at the start of each level. They're packed with information about your mission, but since most of them are nothing more than a slideshow, it can kind of come off as homework. I should be paying attention, but I want to play already. In each mission, you take on 3 or 4 objectives and usually regroup with your squad in between. The Call of Duty formula we're all used to started right here. Things like picking up weapons off of enemy soldiers, aiming down sights for improved accuracy, and utilizing grenades to clear out hotspots are all here. I didn't play this game originally, but I knew how to instantly, and that just proves how well Infinity Ward established the basics. Almost all of the core elements of a Call of Duty game are presented here in this very first installment, and because of that, I felt comfortable. Starting with this game, I played on the hardest difficulty for what I think is the truest experience, but that might have set me back a little bit because sometimes it felt like more of a grind than a fun World War II game. In the end, however, I can't deny the impact this had and its significant importance on gaming as a whole. This is simply the beginning.
We lost the captain. Damn, that was a very fine man.
Before DLCs were even called that, expansion packs were offered to players for added content like new levels, weapons, and more. Call of Duty was no exception. It was a PC game after all. So in late 2004, its first and only expansion was released, Call of Duty United Offensive. This expansion is broken up into 3 smaller campaigns, once again the US, British, and Soviet. Some of the new levels were pretty large, and a few new guns were added, but it's more of the same for better or worse. But I have to say I wasn't expecting an airplane battle so early in the series. It was a great change of pace. Same for the gunboat mission. They also added a sprint feature, which really aided my playthrough. It's almost silly how different Call of Duty games are without it. I felt like I was actually playing a Call of Duty game and not some other World War II FPS of the era. Speaking of which, I think playing Call of Duty and its expansion back to back the way I did may have taken away some of its magic. Back in 2003, let's say you finished the first Call of Duty and you were just waiting for more. How excited must you have felt to hear that an expansion was on its way? I'm positive the anticipation made this expansion's release way more memorable. I think I just goofed up. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is how tons of sounds carry over from these first few games. Getting hit and losing your hearing, your players sprinting and vaulting noises, and even some UI sounds were reused. It's weird, but it's comforting. Little things like this begin to form the groundwork for what makes a Call of Duty game a Call of Duty game. So really, my memories with this game are a mix of endurance, patience, and things blowing up all around me. Overall, it's a nice addition, but in true expansion pack fashion, it felt like more of the same. Originally released for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube, Call of Duty Finest Hour was the first Call of Duty game on console. It goes without saying that this was a smart move and would greatly affect the future of the series. Later games would continue this trend and launch on multiple consoles and also share their release with PC. But since this one's for console only, Finest Hour carries a different tone in its visuals. It's darker and murkier thanks to the renderware engine, but I think it works to the game's advantage. You see what I mean in the game's opening mission, which takes place at night. The glowing fires and explosions in Stalingrad look great on older hardware. But besides the visuals, the storytelling is embellished with small touches like multiple camera angles, individual narratives before each mission, and ending cutscenes that close out the missions. The gameplay itself isn't bad, but has some sensitivity issues when it comes to the analog sticks that really can't be tweaked. But this was a time where first-person shooter controls on consoles were still working out the kinks, so I got used to it eventually. The music by Michael Giacchino is wonderful, and it isn't always blaring out of context like in other games. In stressful moments like when you're down in the sewers, it slows down to fit the level just perfectly. Even though the mission objectives are similar to the first Call of Duty, the pace felt smoother to me. I didn't spend hours trying to get through one level like I did before. And if missions were getting a little stale, stuff like this always helped break it up. These little cutscenes are such a thing of this era, and I always find them charming even when they're only like 3 or 4 seconds. The cinematics also help you give context as to who you are. You're not just a faceless soldier this time. You speak and contribute in more ways than before. Like Call of Duty 1, you also play 3 campaigns serving the Soviet, American, and British forces. But it feels less like a playable history lesson than it did before. While there are historical briefings before each mission, Finest Hour introduced more of a personal narrative with each campaign. These are voiced over wonderfully and do a great job of connecting you to the character you're playing as. Other games like Medal of Honor did this too, and it really helped me hit the restart button in my mind before each mission. Overall, I think Finest Hour is a solid introduction to Call of Duty on console. It was the first spin-off title, but it certainly wouldn't be the last. 2 years and $27 million after Call of Duty 1, we got Call of Duty 2 in 2005. Jumping into this game, I noticed loads of similarities to Call of Duty 1. Many assets are reused, most notably the weapons and sounds. At a glance, this actually looks like another expansion of the first game. However, beyond that first glance, I noticed more and more details. Textures and player models are polished, and the voice acting is still charming but improved. And there's more of it.
On my command, kick open the door and frag those crowds. Ready? Now!
The overall gameplay is similar too, but they took away the sprinting option, which I found to be a major setback. You can't sprint or even throw back enemy grenades, but hey, at least Captain Price is back. You know, I actually learned all about this at E3 2019. Art director Joel Emsley discussed how Modern Warfare 2019 would see the return of Captain Price, and that wasn't the first time that had happened. Infinity Ward wanted to utilize Price again, so they did. He leads the troops in the British campaign and even rocks some Stephen Irwin shorts. As far as the storytelling goes, I feel like Call of Duty 2 took some small steps in the right direction. There are more memorable characters you go into battle with, and the missions themselves are a little more personal that way. You start to remember faces and voices and get a sense of brotherhood. Like Call of Duty 1, your missions vary from holding out areas until help arrives, fighting off reinforcements and counterattacks, and of course, taking down AA guns. But again, in the regular infantry missions, things get a little repetitive, especially voice lines. Speaking of sound work, this game is loud. I had everything turned down almost all the way, and it was still a mess of screaming, explosions, loud weapons, and the music. Later, Call of Duty 2 was ported to the all-new Xbox 360, and even a spin-off title called Call of Duty 2 Big Red One surfaced on PlayStation 2 and GameCube. In my mind, this was actually an important distinction from the first 2 games. It was developed by Grey Matter Studios and Treyarch, and while it looks a little rough around the edges, it's an impressive departure in storytelling and gameplay. In real life, the United States Army's 1st Infantry Division, also known as the Big Red One, was a renowned group. The game's entire campaign spotlights the infantry's efforts throughout World War II. Like before, visually you can tell this game was intended for consoles, and I don't mean that in a bad way. The textures are gritty and even a bit hazy, but it felt like a breath of fresh air compared to the sharp, stark textures of Call of Duty 1 and 2. The voice acting is exciting, the sound mixing is better, and the story is mostly told in-game, which keeps the pacing nice and swift. You're dropped into a variety of missions including ground, tank, and even air combat. It's quite impressive. Compared to previous titles, a lot has changed for the better here. I think the standout difference might be the dialogue between you and your fellow soldiers. They share wisecracks and talk in a natural, believable way, but they also express fear and have conversations that aren't about the troubles that lie ahead. Compare this to Call of Duty 1 and 2, where the AI squad mates are only good for continually spawning in and dying. This was the first time in the series where I cared about my entire team, and that's huge. All around, this was a great departure from the main series, and a great first Call of Duty title from Treyarch. Fortunately, Activision felt the same way, and Treyarch got to develop Call of Duty 3 for the following year. When Call of Duty 3 launched in 2006, I still wasn't a Call of Duty player. I was probably still obsessing over Kingdom Hearts 2. However, it was the first mainline sequel that didn't get a PC release, which didn't go over too well with the PC community. Things like mod support, custom lobbies, and better graphics just weren't an option this time around. On the flip side of that coin, it had a great sales run on console and sold more than 2 million copies in that year, even getting the old Platinum Hits treatment on Xbox. Speaking of which, at this point, yours truly still wasn't quite into the next generation of gaming either. But this game was causing a buzz for some of my friends and coworkers who were playing online. Most of them were waiting for Halo 3, but they were enjoying their time with Call of Duty's multiplayer. As soon as I booted up this game in 2021, I got Big Red 1 vibes with better graphics. Like, surprisingly good. The textures are detailed and the environments are really full, and it just sort of reminds me of something like Call of Duty World at War, a game that wouldn't come out for years. While it's nice to look at, I was honestly dreading another World War II game. Funny enough, despite how well this game did, I learned that a lot of people around this time were also sick of World War II games. On top of the 5 other Call of Duty games I just talked about, more developers were flooding game shelves with their own World War II games. So yeah, I can imagine how repetitive that might have felt. But anyway, I knew there weren't many more down the line, so I buckled up and I prepared for war one last time. Just kidding. The game begins as expected. You're in a makeshift military base preparing to fight when suddenly the fight is brought to you. And speaking of action, this game's opening mission is full of it. As you battle your way through the city of St. Lo in France, you're forced to jump, crawl, call in airstrikes, and even fight this dude in a QuickTime event, which I think was the first in the series. It was a standout level for me, especially because afterwards, the next few levels feel like I'm replaying Call of Duty 2 again. There's only so many times I can clear a house or destroy AA guns, fight off a German counterattack, but again, since I played these games back to back, that might just be on me. Aside from all the shooting, there are loads of explosions and background effects that can be pretty immersive compared to the huge and stark environments of the earlier games. I felt like every stealth mission I played ended up in a firefight, right down to the last few levels, which are the most action-packed. I also remember starting a lot of missions that just begin in a gunfight. You can't wait around or hunt down objectives when they come to you instead. It really pushes the game along. But it was a little grueling without the gameplay breaks I came to expect. The action is probably my biggest takeaway from this entire game. Good action with sparks of good storytelling. And unfortunately, we take one big step backwards before that all changes. You know, I almost didn't mention Call of Duty Roads to Victory because it's a very simple offshoot of Call of Duty 3 on the PSP. I don't think this was meant to be a runaway success in the PSP's library, more so of a way for Activision to test the waters on the PSP platform. Visually, it reminds me of a PS1 game with its blocky, reused character models and its foggy, limited view of environments. Aside from being a little stale in its objectives and some dopey AI, there's nothing really wrong with this title. Well, the controls are pretty busted, I'll say that. As far as the actual game, there are 14 missions between the American, Canadian, and British theater, and in true PSP fashion, they're about 10 minutes each. A solid amount of weapons are represented, but World War II staples like the M1, Thompson, and MP40 were getting a little stale, a problem I feared from the start. The music and voice acting are all just fine. In fact, it's always a treat to hear different voice lines from other companies that aren't Infinity Ward.
We need to link up with them. Follow me.
Overall, this is a watered-down version of Call of Duty that I don't think I'll revisit, but I'm glad I gave it a shot for the sake of this video.
50,000 people used to live here. Now it's a ghost town.
2007 starts an important chapter in Call of Duty as well as my life. Infinity Ward was back, and instead of looking at previous wars for inspiration, they decided to use a modern setting. On November 5th, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was launched on all home consoles and PC. At this point, I was in college and had purposefully held back on picking up an Xbox 360. One, I was broke, but two, I knew I would get sucked in, so I considered it a favor to myself and my studies. Regardless, more and more of my coworkers and childhood friends were hopping on Xbox Live and telling me that I needed to check out COD 4. Excited and reluctant, I bought a used 360 from the nicest dude on Craigslist. He barely got around to using it and sold it to me with the original box and even the receipt. I booted it up and everything changed. Call of Duty was officially a part of my life. Faster than I got to know my Xbox, I was obsessed with Call of Duty 4's online multiplayer. Like many others, I loved the fast-paced shooting, variety of weapons, maps, and of course, the shit talk. But when I finally decided to load up the game's single-player mode, I was not let down. Replaying it this year was refreshing. The story and its characters not only hold up, but are still just as dynamic and fleshed out as I remember. I always found it funny that every character is taller than you, but I realized that this may have been a tactic used to make these characters actually feel larger than life. And that's a great way to describe the story too. Taking place in the modern era, this was the biggest departure from the Call of Duty series yet. This of course meant a huge overhaul of weapons, tech, and environments. But the changes didn't stop there. The tone of the storytelling shifts dramatically thanks to the modern setting and the more bombastic story. In World War II titles prior, you played through real-life events from the Second World War. In Call of Duty 4, you played through a fictional, modern story dealing with terrorism and nuclear warfare. The story felt more like a movie and had memorable characters like the returning Captain Price and Imran Zakhaev as one of the main villains. Like before though, the narrative is told through multiple perspectives that contributes to a grander plot. You still feel like you were a part of the events, but not in a leading role. Instead, you made room for the heroes that surrounded you and led the way, like Price, Griggs, Gaz, and others. Fighting along these soldiers feels like you're only proving that you're worth a damn, and that sort of kept you on your toes. Around this time, I remember hearing rumors about how Infinity Ward worked with actual military people when it came to things like weapons and motion capture. Well, years later, I'm happy to report that all of that was true. It was the first time the studio worked with motion capture at all. So to make sure they did it right, they worked with the US Marines on everything from mocap to the smallest detail in a soldier's weapons and gear. I think this attention to detail really paid off for the team. And with the stronger IW 3.0 engine, the devs were really able to make this game shine with all new lighting effects, sound design, and general polish that they couldn't before. Over the course of 2 years, Infinity Ward worked tirelessly on what would become one of the most successful and one of the most important first-person shooters of all time. It also kicked off the decline of World War II games dominating shooters, but Activision wouldn't fully realize that for a few more years. Call of Duty World at War was almost one of those wrong place at the wrong time sort of games. After an astounding success with Modern Warfare, a World War II game may have felt like a step backwards. But personally, I hold this game high for many reasons. It was the first Call of Duty game where I got the full experience from launch day, and even before that with the beta. World at War was an all-new story that departs from the first 3 titles. It had some standout voice acting from Gary Oldman and Kiefer Sutherland, and a dramatic soundtrack by composer Sean Murray. When I replayed it this year, I unlocked a lot of fond memories. The campaign is another good example of hold your hand storytelling. You're once again led by strong figures like Sergeant Roebuck and Viktor Reznov, and right away you notice that the storytelling has shifted dramatically in a personal, more intimate direction. No more transatlantic narrations or historical newscasts. Instead, we see how the war directly impacts you and your squad. Don't remember? In the opening mission, you play as Private Miller, trapped in a prisoner camp, ready to be killed. After watching Private Pyle get slaughtered right in front of you, Sergeant Roebuck and company come in and save you only after stabbing everyone around you. Then of course it's weapons free and you're able to take back the island guns ablazing. When I think of this game, I think of standout moments like this. The intro on Macon, the first time you meet Reznov, and of course, the grand ending where the Soviet Union takes Berlin and ends the war. Playing it again felt familiar and nostalgic. It uses the same Infinity Ward 3.0 engine, but with some more enhancements. You notice lush details in the forested areas, and even more advanced lighting effects. And at this point, I know what you might be thinking. I can't talk about this game without mentioning one of its biggest draws, a separate mode that debatably outshines World at War entirely: Nazi Zombies. Created as a side project during the development of World at War, Zombies mode was originally unlocked by finishing the campaign. The developers were messing with character models and other bits from the game files and created a mini-game outside of the main storyline. No voice work, no massive story, just a survival mode featuring the undead. When the minigame was unlocked to the public at launch, fans were all over it and instantly begged for more. And boy did they get more. Zombies mode turned into a juggernaut, one that is alive and well to this day. More than 30 Zombies maps have been added across Call of Duty titles. It's become a subculture of Call of Duty with its massive, twisted storyline, years of character development, and integration into the greater Call of Duty lore. And we have World at War to thank for all of it. Seriously, this topic can be its own video, and if you'd like to see something like that, let me know with a thumbs up.
There was also a PS2 version, which is the exact same game, just on older hardware. Hello? It's not? I should? Okay.
Call of Duty World at War Final Fronts is an anomaly. Unlike other cross-gen Call of Duty games that are just ports, Final Fronts is almost an entirely separate game. It's a T-rated version exclusively released for the PlayStation 2. It borrows names, locations, and even voice actors from the original, but a majority of the campaign's missions are different, and of course, toned down. In the opening mission, instead of watching Sergeant Roebuck slaughter everyone and save your ass, he trains you in a COD 4 style obstacle course. But after that at least, you're thrown right into the action on the Solomon Islands. Obviously the graphics take a hit here, but it takes even more steps back with the gameplay and general identity. When it comes to the gameplay, the controls are nowhere near as smooth as what had been established in COD 4. Which brings me to my next point. Who decided to port this over to the PS2, and why didn't COD 4 get the same treatment?
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the man?
As you progress early on, you quickly discover what makes this game hard to enjoy. The AI is doofy, the gameplay chugs, aiming is weird, and Kiefer Sutherland's character is actually modeled from Call of Duty 3's Dixon? It's not the worst Call of Duty on this list, but why it exists, I'll never know. I'm also secretly bummed that Zombies mode wasn't included. Seeing a crappy PS2 version of the earliest Zombies maps might have made me smile. But hey, I can always play that on the Wii.
And just like that, we are halfway there. If you're enjoying my journey so far, drop a like and tune in for part 2 because we're going to kick it off with a little sequel I think you may have heard of.